Have you ever walked into a room and felt everyone watching, trying to read your face, your silence, your next move? The world is full of people playing invisible games for control, some loud, some subtle, all dangerous. The Stoics knew this long before us. Control begins not with others but within. Stay with me and you'll see why. As we step into the first chapter, imagine standing in a crowded room where every glance feels like a quiet test. You can sense the judgment, the curiosity, the subtle power plays happening beneath the surface. No one says a word, yet everyone is speaking through posture, through tone, through silence. This is the true battlefield of life. Not swords, not speeches, but perception. And the one who controls perception controls the outcome. When the Stoics spoke of mastery, they weren't talking about domination, they were talking about clarity. Marcus Aurelius once wrote, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." He meant that every victory in life begins long before it is visible. It begins in the invisible war inside your own mind, the war against impulse, ego, and fear. You win not by attacking others, but by refusing to be conquered by yourself. Now imagine two versions of you walking into that same room. One reacts instantly to every look, every tone, every whisper. The other observes, still unreadable, like calm water reflecting chaos without becoming it. Which one holds control? The Stoics would say the one who governs his own reactions. For the first man, the world decides who he is. For the second, nothing external can define him. That's the difference between being manipulated and being untouchable. Control, in its purest form, is not a weapon, it is armor. It's the quiet discipline to choose what deserves your attention and what does not. Most people live as if every comment deserves a response, every provocation demands defense. But when you truly understand yourself, you no longer take the bait. You watch people's moves without needing to reveal your own. Like a seasoned general, you wait for the dust to settle before choosing your strike, or choosing silence. I learned this the hard way. Years ago, I found myself surrounded by people who thrived on chaos. Every conversation was a contest, every opinion a weapon. I tried to argue, to prove, to persuade, until one day I realized I was losing something far greater than any debate. I was losing my peace. That's when I began to study what the Stoics called the art of governing the soul. Seneca once said, "He who is brave is free." Freedom, I discovered, was not the absence of conflict, but the mastery of response. When you stop reacting, you start leading. Picture the sea during a storm. The waves rage above, but the depths remain still. That depth is your mind when trained through Stoic calm. No matter how others try to stir your emotions, you remain unmoved, not because you don't feel, but because you've learned that feeling is not the same as obeying. People mistake calmness for indifference, but calmness is control in motion. It's choosing not to drown when everyone else is swallowing water. A man who has mastered this silence carries a strange kind of presence. He doesn't need to shout to command attention. He doesn't chase respect, it comes to him. People can sense that he is unshaken. His emotions no longer betray him. His silence becomes a language of power. This is what Marcus Aurelius meant when he said, "Be like the rock against which the waves break. It stands firm, and the raging of the sea falls still around it." But here's the trap most fall into. They think control means suppression. It doesn't. To suppress emotion is to deny your humanity. To master emotion is to guide it. The Stoics did not seek to erase feeling, but to refine it, to let reason steer the fire rather than extinguish it. Think of a blacksmith shaping iron. The flame is fierce, but his hand is steady. Without heat, the metal stays rigid. Without discipline, it melts. Strength is born in balance. There will be moments when your control is tested, when someone insults you, when plans fall apart, when envy rises around you like smoke. In those moments, your instinct will scream for reaction, but Epictetus reminds us, it's not what happens to you, but how you react to it that matters. To outsmart others, you must first outsmart the impulses within yourself. The real opponent is not the person in front of you, it's the emotion inside you waiting to take command. Let me tell you a story. There was once a soldier in the service of a proud Roman general. In battle, he watched his comrades fall one by one, yet his orders were to hold his position and wait. The enemy taunted, the noise was unbearable, but he stood unmoved, shield in hand. When the fight ended, the general asked him, "Why didn't you advance?" The soldier replied, "Because I was not told to move." His restraint won the day. The enemy exhausted itself, and the victory came not from aggression, but endurance. That is Stoic control, the courage to wait when everyone else charges blindly. Control does not make you cold. It makes you precise. When you no longer act from impulse, every word you speak becomes deliberate, every silence meaningful. People begin to sense it. They may not understand it, but they feel it, that quiet authority that doesn't need validation. It unsettles the insecure, inspires the disciplined, and disarms the manipulative. To live this way, you must practice observation more than expression. Watch yourself the way a philosopher watches nature. Ask, what stirred me? Why did I react? Each answer is a doorway to mastery. The Stoics called this constant self-awareness prosos, the attention to the present moment. In modern life, that's your advantage. The world is full of people distracted by their emotions. If you can stay centered, you've already won. And remember this, the more you know yourself, the less they can use against you. They can mock, provoke, tempt, but they can't touch what you've already mastered. The man who has conquered his own reactions is invincible in every argument, in every negotiation, in every test of will. Others depend on the chaos around them to feel powerful. You depend on nothing. That's the kind of control no one can take from you. In the end, control is not about dominating the world. It's about building an inner world so ordered that the outer chaos loses its power. It's not about silencing others, it's about quieting the noise within. Once you've done that, no insult can disturb you. No failure can define you. No praise can corrupt you. You become steady, not unfeeling, but unbroken. So as we close this first chapter, remember the invisible war is not fought with words or weapons. It is fought in the moments you choose not to react, not to explain, not to prove. Each time you stay silent when anger calls your name, each time you breathe before responding, each time you choose calm over chaos, you win. The world cannot read a mind that is still. And that is your advantage, because while others chase control over people, the Stoic learns control over himself. That's where true dominance begins, and where all illusions of power end. From here, we move forward, from mastering the self to mastering the space around us. Because once you understand the inner battlefield, it's time to learn how to command the outer one. Moving into the second chapter, picture this: a crowded marketplace in ancient Rome, merchants shouting, deals being struck, arguments erupting over the price of grain. Amid the noise, a man stands silent, arms folded, his gaze steady. He does not rush to join the quarrel. He does not explain himself. He observes, he controls the frame, and without uttering a single word, the energy of the crowd bends toward him. That is power without noise. Control is not about fighting harder. It's about deciding what deserves a fight. Most people lose control not because they are weak, but because they allow others to decide the terms of battle. They enter every argument, defend every opinion, react to every tone. But when you live by Stoic discipline, you learn something radical. You don't have to fight every war to win it. Marcus Aurelius once wrote, "You always own the option of having no opinion. There is never a need to get worked up or to trouble your soul." It's one of the simplest and most devastating forms of control, the ability to choose silence when others demand chaos. Imagine you're in a conversation that begins to heat up. The other person raises their voice, sharpens their words, trying to pull you in. You feel the sting of pride, the rush of heat, the need to respond. But then something in you pauses. You remember that anger is a leash tied to whoever provokes it. You step back internally. You watch them talk, watch their energy burn itself out. You don't defend yourself. You don't try to fix their perception. You let their noise hang in the air until it collapses under its own weight. That moment, that quiet moment where you resist the urge to react, is where you reclaim control of the frame. The Stoics taught that the mind should be like a fortress, walls built not to isolate but to protect. When someone provokes you, they are not attacking you, they are testing your walls. Do you have the discipline to let words pass through you like wind through stone? Or will you crumble at the first gust of insult? Seneca said, "It is the power of the mind to be unconquerable, and that power is most visible when everything around you tries to conquer it." I remember once being in a room full of people who disagreed with me. The air was heavy with tension, faces waiting for me to snap or justify myself. I could feel their anticipation, that hunger to see me lose control. Instead, I stayed quiet. I adjusted my posture, took a breath, and simply said, "Perhaps you're right." The silence that followed was sharper than any argument I could have made. In that silence, I learned something. People often mistake surrender for defeat, but sometimes surrender is the weapon that ends the battle. You win not by overpowering them, but by outlasting their noise. Think of the mind as a stage. Whoever controls the frame controls the story. If someone offends you and you respond with anger, they have made you an actor in their play. But when you choose calmness, the scene collapses, and they no longer know what role to play. Epictetus once taught his students, if someone succeeds in provoking you, realize that your mind is complicit in the provocation. He was reminding us that reaction gives permission. When you stop reacting, the manipulator loses script, the aggressor loses audience, and the room, the whole room, falls into your rhythm. This doesn't mean you must be passive. It means you must be precise. The Stoic does not hide from conflict, he shapes it. He speaks when it matters, and when he does, every word is intentional. To control the frame is to direct attention toward what truly matters and away from what does not. You can walk into a conversation full of hostility, yet with the right tone, the right timing, you can turn an attack into a question into reflection, and reflection into silence. That is the Stoics' art, not to fight harder, but to make the fight irrelevant. There's a story told of Musonius Rufus, the teacher of Epictetus. Once, during a debate, his opponent insulted him publicly, accusing him of being weak and naive. The crowd laughed, waiting for his reply. Instead, Musonius simply smiled and said, "I pity you, for your anger harms you more than your words harm me." That line ended the discussion. It wasn't wit, it was mastery. He didn't compete for dominance, he revealed who truly had control. The world will always try to pull you into its noise, social games, arguments, accusations, all designed to steal your attention. But remember this, the most powerful person in any room is the one who decides what the room will be about. When you control the frame, you no longer need to shout. Your stillness becomes authority. Your restraint becomes command. You stop playing their game and make them play yours, a game where you set the pace, the tone, and the outcome. But this takes practice. It takes learning to sit with discomfort without letting it dictate your response. It takes learning to hear lies about you without needing to correct them. The Stoics called this apatheia, not apathy, but freedom from disturbance. It's what allows you to walk through chaos untouched. It's what lets you hear 100 opinions about you and remain centered because you no longer need to be understood, only to be true to your principles. When you live this way, something profound happens. People begin to mirror your calm. They adjust their tone to match yours. You turn storms into quiet conversations simply by not reacting. This isn't manipulation, it's leadership. The Stoics were not detached from life. They led armies, governed empires, and faced death. But they did so with composure because they understood one truth: control of the frame is control of fate. I once met a man who told me his secret to peace. He said, "I stopped trying to be right in every room. I started trying to be whole in every room." That line struck me deeply. To be whole is to know that your worth is not on trial. You don't need to defend your integrity to people who don't understand it. Let them believe what they want. You remain unshaken, like the mountain that doesn't chase clouds for approval. So the next time someone challenges you, ask yourself, am I responding to them, or am I defending my ego? Because the ego always wants to prove, but the wise only wish to understand. The ego reacts, the wise reframe. The ego fights for validation, the wise fight for clarity. When you realize that every argument is just a tug of perception, you stop pulling, you let go, and in letting go, you make the rope yours again. Marcus Aurelius once reflected, "If you are pained by any external thing, it is not this thing that disturbs you, but your judgment about it." That single sentence holds the blueprint to control. You don't control others, you control interpretation. The frame is not out there, it's in here, inside your mind. And when you master that, no insult can humiliate you, no loss can define you, and no manipulation can reach you. So, control the frame. Let others waste their energy trying to win arguments. You, on the other hand, win the moment. You win by staying present, by staying still, by letting them expose themselves through their own noise. Because every loud man eventually reveals his weakness, while every calm one conceals his power. In the end, you learn that control isn't about dominating people, it's about dominating perception. It's not about being right, it's about being real. The man who no longer needs to prove anything has already won. And as this truth settles, as you feel that quiet strength forming in your chest, prepare to take it deeper, because in the next step, we move beyond silence itself, into the mastery of when to speak and when to say nothing at all. Advancing to the third chapter, imagine walking through a hallway filled with voices. Everyone talks, everyone explains, everyone tries to prove something, yet there's one person who doesn't rush to speak. He listens, he observes, he waits, and somehow the entire room begins to revolve around his silence. That's not luck. That's power refined through restraint. In a world where everyone fights to be heard, the one who masters silence owns the conversation. We often think influence is about words, but the Stoics knew better. It's about timing. It's about presence. Epictetus once said, "Nature gave us one tongue and two ears so that we may listen twice as much as we speak." That was not a call for passivity. It was a strategy. Every unnecessary word you utter is a piece of your power handed away. Every silence you hold is information gained. The man who learns to listen learns to see. Now imagine this: you're in a heated discussion. Someone challenges you, tries to corner you, their words sharp, their tone filled with ego. You feel that old instinct to reply, to defend, to make them understand. But you stop. You let their words echo for a moment, and instead of speaking, you breathe. In that pause, you're no longer reacting, you're calculating. You let silence do the work. You give them enough space to reveal themselves, because people will always expose what they fear most in silence. That's why silence unsettles them. It turns their noise into confession. There's an old Roman story about Cato the Younger, a man known for his unbreakable discipline. In the Senate, when debates grew loud and tempers burned, he rarely spoke first. He watched. He let his opponents exhaust themselves in emotion and rhetoric. Then, when the moment was right, he spoke a single sentence, calm, clear, immovable. And in that instant, the room would shift. The same men who mocked him minutes ago would fall silent, realizing they had spent their energy arguing with themselves. Cato understood what few ever learn, that calm is not the absence of emotion, it is the supremacy of reason. The Stoics believed the voice is an extension of the soul. If the soul is disturbed, the voice trembles. If the soul is steady, the voice becomes command. Seneca once wrote, "Speech is a mirror of the mind." So when you speak, ask yourself, what is my reflection saying? Are my words calm, or are they chaos disguised as reason? The disciplined man doesn't speak to be right, he speaks to be clear. He doesn't speak to prove, he speaks to serve truth. And that is why people respect his words. I remember a moment years ago, a meeting filled with egos, all trying to dominate. I had ideas, strong ones, and I wanted to speak. But something told me to wait. So I listened. I watched how people interrupted, how they sought validation, how they spoke not to contribute, but to conquer. Then, when the noise began to fade, I spoke once, slowly. No rush, no need to convince, just clarity. The room changed. They listened, not because my words were perfect, but because I had waited until silence made them valuable. That day I learned, silence multiplies value. The less you use it, the more it's worth. To speak so people respect you, you must first stop speaking to impress them. Respect is not earned through volume, but through control. When your tone stays steady while theirs shakes, when your eyes stay calm while theirs search for approval, they begin to feel it, the quiet gravity of someone who doesn't need to win. Marcus Aurelius called this dignity of the soul, the stillness that carries more power than force. People instinctively lean toward calm because chaos exhausts them. And when you embody calm, you become the anchor in every storm. But there's another layer to this mastery, learning when silence itself is the response. When you meet disrespect, don't meet it with words, meet it with composure. Seneca advised, "The best revenge is not to be like your enemy." Silence in the face of disrespect is not weakness, it's a mirror that forces the other person to see their own smallness. If you argue with the petty, you become petty. If you stay silent, you become untouchable. They lose their stage, and you keep your peace. There's a lesson here that few understand. Words are not tools, they are weapons. Once released, they can't be taken back. Every word costs energy. Every argument drains focus. So before you speak, ask, is this worth spending my strength on? The Stoics believed in the economy of speech. Say little, mean much, because when your words are few, they become sharp. And when your silences are long, they become sacred. Silence also reveals who truly listens. In a conversation, most people are not listening, they're waiting for their turn to talk. But the one who truly listens gains insight others never see. You begin to notice the small tremor in their tone, the contradiction in their logic, the insecurity behind their arrogance. Observation turns into foresight, and foresight, that's control. There's a powerful image in the Stoic writings, the archer. He pulls the bow, breath steady, eyes fixed. He releases not in haste, but in rhythm with his breath. That's how the Stoic speaks. He doesn't shoot words wildly. He waits for alignment, mind, purpose, and truth. Then he releases one arrow, straight and silent. That arrow always lands. Because while others flood the world with noise, his few words cut through everything unnecessary. We live in an age that worships talking, podcasts, debates, endless scrolling voices. Everyone wants to be heard, few want to understand. But when you learn to control your voice, you become rare. When you can pause before speaking, you stand out in a world addicted to speed. And when you speak only when the moment demands, your words strike like thunder in a quiet sky. Yet silence is not retreat, it is preparation. The Stoic pauses not to escape, but to sharpen. He uses silence, the way a warrior uses his breath before the battle, to align strength with intention. The man who pauses commands the moment. He decides when it begins and when it ends. And that's how you control any room you enter, not by filling it, but by defining its rhythm. Epictetus once told his students, "Let silence be your general rule, or say only what is necessary." This was not a denial of expression, it was a discipline of meaning. You can speak for 10 minutes and say nothing, or you can speak for 1 and move hearts. The difference lies not in vocabulary, but in presence. The Stoic presence is magnetic because it carries the weight of thought, the patience of restraint, and the purity of purpose. So, as you walk into your next conversation, remember this: you're not there to prove you're right. You're there to stay true to yourself. Let your silence confuse those who seek reaction. Let your calmness command those who seek attention. Let your words, when they finally come, arrive like a blade drawn from still water, deliberate, precise, and undeniable. Because in the end, the man who speaks with restraint doesn't need to raise his voice. The world raises its ears to hear him. And that's the paradox of true control. The less you try to be heard, the more people listen. From here, the path deepens. Because after mastering silence and speech, the next challenge is not how you handle others, it's how you read them. The next chapter is not about what you say, but what you see. Now imagine walking through the crowd with eyes that no longer see faces, but patterns. You begin to notice things most people miss. A twitch before a lie, a pause before an attack, a smile that hides resentment. This is where perception turns into power. You no longer react to people, you read them. You no longer take their words at face value, you hear what is unsaid. That's the quiet advantage of the Stoic observer. Control born not from dominance, but from understanding. Marcus Aurelius once wrote, "Observe what is behind appearances." He didn't mean to become suspicious of the world, but to see it as it truly is, stripped of illusions, stripped of flattery, stripped of masks. Every person carries two selves, the one they show and the one they hide. The crowd judges the surface. The Stoic studies the current underneath. When you begin to look this way, the game changes. Because while others chase impressions, you move with insight. I remember once meeting a man who spoke with great charm, every word polished, every gesture rehearsed. People admired him, trusted him instantly, but something felt off, a subtle tension between his smile and his eyes. He laughed easily, but his laughter never reached his face. I stayed silent, just observing. Months later, his motives came to light. The same people who once praised him now whispered his name like a warning. But I wasn't surprised. The truth had always been there. In the details, the untrained mind overlooks. You don't need prophecy to see through people. You need patience. To see people clearly, you must detach from wanting anything from them. Desire blinds, expectation blinds. When you want someone's approval, you can't see their intentions. When you crave connection, you ignore their contradictions. The Stoic sees without need. He observes like a surgeon, calm, deliberate, without judgment. Seneca said, "He who is brave is free." That freedom begins when your perception is no longer chained to emotion. You stop asking, "Do they like me?" and start asking, "Who are they showing me they are?" There's a moment in every relationship, every encounter, when truth flickers. Maybe it's in how someone treats the waiter, or how their tone shifts when they lose advantage. Pay attention to that flicker. The Stoics called it the signal of nature, reality revealing itself for a heartbeat before the mask returns. It's not paranoia, it's awareness. The wise don't watch to judge, they watch to understand. Because understanding gives distance, and distance gives power. Once, a friend asked me how to read others better. I told him to stop listening to what people say about themselves and start watching what they repeat. The man who constantly speaks of loyalty may be hiding his disloyalty. The one who insists he's humble often demands recognition in subtle ways. Patterns never lie. Seneca once advised, "A man's character is shown by what he laughs at." Pay attention to what amuses people, what angers them, what makes them nervous. Those are the fingerprints of the soul. But here's the warning: the more you see, the less you can ignore. When you start observing deeply, you'll realize how many interactions are built on pretense. You'll see how people use charm to control, how kindness can be transactional, how ego hides under modesty. It can feel heavy, even lonely. But that's where Stoic clarity must lead you to compassion, not contempt. Marcus reminded himself daily, "When you wake in the morning, remind yourself that you will meet the ungrateful, the arrogant, the deceitful." He didn't say this to grow bitter, but to stay calm. Once you expect imperfection, you stop being surprised by it. You start responding with reason, not resentment. Reading others is not about judgment, it's about protection. The Stoic learns the art of distance, how to remain kind without being deceived, how to stay open without being exposed. Like a warrior observing from high ground, you see the battlefield clearly. You don't rush in with emotion, you wait, you learn, and when you act with precision. That is the kind of control that can't be faked, calm that comes from knowing rather than guessing. There's a Roman parable about a philosopher who lived among liars. People asked him how he could bear their deceit without anger. He said, "Because a lie is not about me, it is about the fear in them." That's how the Stoic sees human behavior, not as an offense, but as a reflection of weakness or ignorance. When you understand that, people lose their power to offend you. You start to see insults as confessions, manipulation as insecurity, arrogance as fear disguised as strength. Once you see that, their actions no longer pierce you, they simply pass by. You can practice this anywhere, in conversation, in meetings, in silence. Try this when someone speaks. Focus not on their words, but on their tone. Watch their eyes when they think no one's watching. Listen to what they avoid, not what they emphasize. The Stoic is a student of human nature. Every moment teaches him how fragile the human mask really is. And the more he learns, the less he reacts. Because to see the truth of others is to understand your own nature too. Epictetus taught that every encounter is a lesson in virtue. If someone lies to you, it's a test of your honesty. If they betray you, it's a test of your detachment. If they praise you falsely, it's a test of your humility. The world reveals itself through people, and people reveal themselves through how they treat what they can't control. Once you see this, you stop trying to change them. You start refining yourself. You become less of a judge and more of an observer, grounded, clear, unprovoked. The power to read others is not for pride, it's for peace. Because when you understand what drives people, you stop expecting them to act against their nature. You stop demanding fairness from the unfair, loyalty from the self-serving, empathy from the cold. You learn to meet reality as it is. That's what the Stoics called living according to nature, not the trees and rivers, but the truth of human behavior. You align with it instead of resisting it. And from that alignment comes peace no deception can disturb. When you master this art, you begin to live with quiet foresight. You sense storms before they arrive. You know who to trust without words. You avoid traps before they're set. The Stoic doesn't predict the future, he reads the present so clearly that the future becomes obvious. And when you move through life this way, you stop stumbling over illusions. You start walking with awareness, not fear. Seeing others clearly is one of life's most demanding disciplines, but also one of its most freeing. Because once you see people as they are, you no longer hate them for not being what you wished. You accept, you adapt, and you stay calm. Marcus Aurelius said, "To understand is to forgive, not to excuse, but to let go of anger's poison." The mind that sees truth cannot be enslaved by resentment. So, look again at the world around you. The faces, the gestures, the words behind words. Every encounter is a mirror showing you something about human nature and about yourself. Train your perception, and you'll begin to see the invisible strings that move people's actions. That's not cynicism, that's clarity. And clarity is power. Because the man who can read the room never has to raise his voice. The man who sees through others never needs to defend himself. He knows what they are and what he is. And that knowledge makes him untouchable. From here, we go further. Because once you've learned to see others clearly, the next challenge is not how to respond to them, but how to remain unshaken by them. The next lesson is composure under fire, the strength to stay calm when the world loses itself. Entering the 5th chapter, imagine standing in the center of a storm, voices rising, tempers burning, chaos swirling, and yet inside you there is stillness, not emptiness, stillness. The kind of silence that does not come from retreat, but from mastery. This is where calm becomes command. The untrained mind mistakes stillness for weakness, but the Stoic knows it is the purest form of power. When the world loses control, composure is the last man standing. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "Be like the promontory against which the waves continually break. It stands firm, and the raging of the sea falls still around it." That is not a metaphor, it is instruction. The world will throw noise at you, insult you, test you, betray you. People will shout to provoke a reaction, hoping to drag you into their chaos because chaos loves company. But the Stoic refuses to join the storm. He becomes the stone beneath it. The calm man does not escape the battle. He changes its terms. Picture this. You're in a meeting and someone challenges you harshly in front of everyone. The air thickens with tension. All eyes turn to you, waiting for your defense, your anger, your stumble. But instead, you breathe. You hold that silence. The room becomes aware of your control before you even speak. And when you finally do, your voice is slow, grounded, deliberate. The attack dissolves. The one who tried to dominate you now looks smaller, exposed by his own lack of control. That's not luck. That's training. Calmness, rehearsed through many small moments of restraint, becomes unshakable power in the moments that matter. Seneca said, "Anger, if not restrained, is often more hurtful to us than the injury that provokes it." He understood that reaction is surrender. Every time you lose your temper, you hand someone else the key to your peace. You let them lead you by invisible strings. But composure cuts those strings. It says, "You cannot control me, because I do not need to respond to you." It's not arrogance, it's independence. It's the understanding that your dignity is not for rent to anyone's behavior. I once saw a commander reprimanded unjustly in front of his soldiers. The accusation was sharp, public, humiliating. The commander stood still, face unreadable, hands behind his back. He didn't defend himself. He didn't break eye contact. When his superior was done shouting, the commander simply said, "Understood," and walked away. Days later, the truth came out. He had been right all along. But by then, everyone had already seen it. Not because he argued, but because he stayed dignified when others lost control. Respect follows the one who holds his center. This is why composure is not the absence of emotion. It's the discipline to channel it. Anger, fear, frustration, they all exist, but in the Stoics' hands, they become energy transformed into clarity. Like a blade forged in fire, calmness is shaped through pressure. You don't learn it in peace. You learn it when life throws you into the fire and you refuse to burn. That's why Marcus reminded himself daily, you have power over your mind, not outside events. He wasn't trying to escape the world. He was training to remain unbroken within it. The greatest test of composure is not in battle, but in small, ordinary moments. The slow driver, the rude stranger, the person who interrupts you mid-sentence. These are the exercises of the Stoic. Every time you choose patience over impulse, you are fortifying the inner citadel. You're teaching your mind to remain still when provoked. Over time, these small victories build an empire of calm. And when the big storms arrive, you no longer tremble, because you have already trained in miniature battles no one saw. Epictetus told his students, if someone speaks ill of you, do not defend yourself. Simply answer, he does not know the rest. That line carries a lifetime of wisdom. The person who needs to be understood is a prisoner to perception. The person who stays silent owns himself. When you are no longer desperate to explain your worth, you become untouchable. You stop chasing understanding and start radiating self-command. People feel it before they hear it. Calmness is contagious. It shifts the energy of any space you enter. When you walk into a room with steadiness, others instinctively lower their guard. It's as if your silence gives them permission to breathe. That's leadership without words. You don't dominate through volume, you dominate through presence. The Stoic doesn't need to intimidate. His composure already separates him from those ruled by emotion. But composure doesn't mean indifference. It doesn't mean pretending nothing hurts. It means allowing pain to move through you without letting it own you. Imagine a mountain stream after a storm. The water may rage, but the bed of the river remains. That's your mind when disciplined. You feel, but you do not drown in feeling. You acknowledge emotion without obeying it. That balance is where wisdom lives. There's a story about a teacher who was insulted by a student during a lecture. The insult was cruel, meant to humiliate. The teacher paused, looked at him calmly, and said, "If someone offers you a gift and you do not take it, to whom does it belong?" The student stayed silent. The teacher smiled and continued the lesson. That's composure in action, knowing that not every attack deserves a reaction. Some gifts are better left unaccepted. The world often celebrates aggression, but composure lasts longer. Anger burns fast, calm endures. The loud rise quickly, but fall quickly too. The quiet climb slowly, but they remain. Because what is steady cannot be destroyed by noise. The Stoics lived by this: never let external storms shake your internal weather. You can't control the wind, but you can set your sail. You can't control the waves, but you can choose how you stand against them. And when you master this, you begin to see that composure is not just a defense, it's influence. People trust those who stay steady. They follow those who don't panic. They open up to those who remain rational when emotions run wild. Calmness commands not through force, but through reliability. It's a quiet gravity that pulls others towards stability. In the end, calmness is not something you find, it's something you build. You build it by losing it 1,000 times and choosing to rebuild again. You build it when you're tested, insulted, betrayed, yet you breathe instead of breaking. Each time you hold back the storm inside, you prove to yourself that peace is not a condition, it's a decision. And once you've built it, no one can take it. So the next time life provokes you, remember this: your reaction is your reflection. Don't give your enemies the satisfaction of seeing you lose yourself. Don't hand your peace to someone who doesn't value it. Let your calmness speak louder than their chaos. Let your silence answer their noise. Because nothing is more terrifying to a manipulator than the man he cannot shake. In a world addicted to outrage, composure is rebellion. It's the refusal to be pulled by every emotion, every insult, every storm. It's standing tall when others tremble. It's choosing clarity over conflict. It's power disguised as peace. And from this stillness, we rise to something even higher. Not just staying calm within the storm, but turning that calm into unshakable authority. Because the next lesson is not just about surviving the chaos, it's about commanding it. At this stage, imagine standing before a mirror that doesn't show your reflection, but your reactions. Every glare, every twitch, every frown you've ever given, captured. What would it reveal? It would show how easily you're moved, how quickly you're read, how often your emotions betray your strength. Now imagine erasing all of that. A face unreadable, a presence unpredictable. That is the beginning of unshakable power, the art of being untouchable, not because you're hidden, but because you're ungraspable. Control, true control, is not about predicting others. It's about refusing to be predictable yourself. The world thrives on patterns. People repeat what they expect. When you break that rhythm, when you act without warning, you disarm every strategy they had against you. Marcus Aurelius said, "You become invincible when you no longer compete with anyone, But invincibility is not found in resistance. It's found in unpredictability, in the ability to shift without warning while staying anchored inside. I once knew a man who was impossible to read. He never raised his voice, never rushed his words, never repeated himself. In meetings, people would lean forward, trying to interpret him. Some thought he was arrogant, others thought he was wise. But the truth was simple. He had mastered his rhythm. He didn't let the world set it for him. When he spoke, it wasn't because he had to fill silence. It was because he had something to say. And when he didn't, his silence carried more weight than any speech. People couldn't figure him out, and that was his weapon. He wasn't playing defense, he was directing the entire field. The Stoics understood this balance better than anyone. They were never rigid. They were adaptable, fluid, unpredictable in form, but unbreakable in essence. Seneca compared life to a river. He said, "We must follow the current when it leads, and resist it only when virtue demands. It means you don't fight every flow. You learn when to bend, when to hold, when to vanish, when to strike. That's how you remain in control, even when everything shifts around you. Rigidity snaps. Flexibility endures." Think of the warrior Musonius, mentor to Epictetus. When his enemies banished him to a barren island, they expected despair. Instead, he farmed the land, taught philosophy to fishermen, and turned exile into influence. His enemies were disarmed because they couldn't predict him. They thought punishment would break him, but he turned it into practice. He had mastered the Stoic paradox, power through adaptability. The moment people can't anticipate you, they can't control you. Every manipulator, every aggressor, every rival depends on one thing: your predictability. They push you the same way every time because they know where the button is. But when you stop reacting as expected, you confuse their rhythm. You force them into uncertainty. They start hesitating, adjusting, stumbling. And that's when control quietly shifts to you. You become the storm's center, still while everything else spins. To live this way, you must train yourself to move beyond patterns of reaction. Epictetus taught, when something happens, you can always choose how you respond. But he also meant something deeper. You can choose when to respond, or if you respond at all. Sometimes silence is your unpredictability. Sometimes laughter is. Sometimes it's walking away when they expect war. When people think they can map your behavior, they prepare traps. But when you refuse to walk the same path twice, every trap they set becomes useless. This doesn't mean becoming erratic or inconsistent. The Stoics' unpredictability isn't chaos. It's precision. It's the deliberate use of timing and presence to make others reveal themselves first. You observe their rhythm, then shift yours. It's like the way a skilled duelist waits for the smallest opening, not because he fears attack, but because patience is his greatest weapon. He lets the other tire himself out, expose his moves, then strikes once, calmly, cleanly, decisively. The truth is, people crave predictability because it gives them power. They want to know when you'll break, when you'll speak, when you'll defend. But when your composure makes you unreadable, they begin to project their own fears onto you. They start imagining what you might do next, and their imagination becomes their torment. You've already won before doing anything. Marcus Aurelius said, "The best revenge is to be unlike your enemy." To be unpredictable is to be uncontainable. It's to exist outside their expectations entirely. There's a story from the early Stoics about a philosopher named Zeno. During an argument, a rival tried to provoke him by throwing a bucket of water in his face. Zeno didn't flinch. He wiped his face calmly and said, "You have failed to convince me with reason, so you use water." The crowd laughed, the aggressor lost control, and Zeno's dignity grew tenfold. He didn't match insult with outrage. He shifted the frame. In that moment, his composure became unpredictability. His calmness was his counterattack. The Stoic who masters unpredictability doesn't seek to shock. He seeks to remain untethered. He lives by reason, not reflex. His strength lies in not being trapped by anyone's expectation of him, including his own. He can be firm or soft, silent or loud, visible or invisible, whatever the situation demands, guided only by virtue and clarity. To those who crave control, he's impossible to grasp. To those who seek truth, he's steady as a compass. I once met a leader who practiced this art perfectly. During a crisis, when his team panicked, he did something unexpected. He smiled, not out of denial, but to break the chain of fear. His calmness shifted the mood instantly. People started breathing again, thinking again. He later told me, "I never show the same face twice. If they can predict me, they stop paying attention." That's the Stoic's genius. Adaptability guided by principle. Unpredictability is not deception. It's freedom. It's moving like water, clear in purpose, fluid in form. You bend, but never break. You adjust without losing direction. Seneca said, "The wise man lives as the world demands, but never as it dictates." That's the balance. You respond to life, but life never writes your script. When you master this, your energy becomes magnetic. People can't categorize you, so they respect you. They sense something they can't define, presence without explanation. It's the aura of someone who's at ease in every situation because he depends on nothing external to stay grounded. That's the quiet terror of strength, the man who can change his rhythm without changing himself. So train yourself to move beyond the patterns that hold others captive. Surprise with silence, disarm with calmness, respond with thought when they expect emotion, withdraw when they demand reaction. The more unpredictable your response is, the more stable your power. Because control is not about dominating others, it's about refusing to let them script you. And when you reach that level, your enemies stop trying to predict you. They start respecting you. Not because you frightened them, but because you confused the part of them that needed to control you. You became untouchable, not through force, but through freedom. From here, the path deepens even further. Because after mastering unpredictability, the next lesson is about detachment, the power to win, not by holding tighter, but by letting go. From here, picture yourself standing at the edge of everything you once thought you needed. The approval, the control, the validation, the victory. You've spent years fighting to gain power over yourself, over others, over the chaos around you. But now, the final test arrives. You must learn to release the very thing you've mastered. Detachment, the quiet power of letting go. This is not surrender, it's transcendence. The Stoics called it freedom, not the kind given by circumstance, but the kind earned when nothing owns you anymore. Marcus Aurelius once wrote, "Receive without pride, let go without attachment." That line alone contains an entire philosophy of life, because what chains us is never the thing itself, but our need for it, our need for recognition, our need to be right, our need to hold on to moments, people and victories that were only meant to pass through us. Detachment is not coldness, it's clarity. It's the ability to hold everything lightly, even the things you love, because you know nothing external truly belongs to you. Imagine holding sand in your palm. Squeeze it and it slips away. Open your hand and it rests there peacefully. That's how the Stoic approaches life. He doesn't grasp. He doesn't beg the universe to keep what's destined to move on. He knows everything in life is borrowed: time, relationships, success, even the breath in his lungs. So he lives fully, but never greedily. He gives himself to the moment, and when it ends, he lets it go without resentment. That's real strength, because it takes more power to release than to possess. I learned this lesson one evening when a close friend betrayed me. It wasn't the act that hurt most. It was the attachment I had to who I thought he was. I replayed the conversations, the trust, the loyalty, all of it, until I realized something profound. My suffering didn't come from his betrayal. It came from my refusal to accept reality. The Stoics call this resistance to nature, wanting life to be something other than it is. The moment I stopped asking why, I began to heal. Epictetus said, "Don't wish for things to happen as you wish, but wish for them to happen as they do, and you will find peace." Acceptance is the highest form of control. Letting go doesn't mean you stop caring. It means you stop clinging. There's a difference. The Stoic loves deeply but without possession. He shows up fully but without the illusion of permanence. Seneca said, "He who fears death will never do anything worthy of the living." He wasn't speaking only of death itself, but of every form of attachment that makes us fearful. Fear of loss, failure, or being forgotten. When you learn to detach, fear dissolves, because you finally understand you can lose everything external and still remain whole. The world teaches you to grasp harder. The Stoic teaches you to release faster. When you cling to control, you become its prisoner. When you let go, you become its master. Look at nature. The tree bends with the wind and survives the storm. The rock that refuses to move eventually cracks. The same truth applies to us. Flexibility isn't weakness, it's wisdom. You flow with life without losing your form. You adapt without abandoning your principles. There's an ancient story of a Roman general who returned home after victory. Behind him, a servant whispered in his ear, "Remember, you are mortal." The reminder wasn't meant to humiliate, but to keep him grounded. Glory fades, crowds disperse, praise turns silent. Only character remains. Detachment keeps you humble in success and steady in loss. You neither drown in victory nor despair in defeat. You become like the ocean, calm beneath the changing tides. But detachment must be practiced, not preached. It starts in small ways. When you lose an argument, instead of defending your pride, ask yourself, is this battle worth my peace? When you face rejection, remind yourself not everything denied is a loss. When someone leaves, say to yourself, they were not mine to keep, only mine to know. The Stoic does not harden his heart, he widens it. He understands that everything he experiences, joy or pain, is a teacher, and no teacher stays forever. Detachment is also the cure for manipulation. The world can't control what you don't crave. When you want nothing, no one can use anything against you. The Stoic who detaches from outcome becomes untouchable. He does his duty, but he isn't defined by results. He gives his best effort, but he releases the need for applause. His worth comes from his alignment with reason and virtue, not from the reactions of the crowd. That's why Marcus Aurelius ruled an empire, yet still called himself a servant of nature, because he knew even the emperor is a guest in a world that doesn't belong to him. To live detached is to live free, but freedom doesn't mean isolation. It means participating in life fully, while understanding that everything changes. You love without chaining. You serve without expecting reward. You act without needing to control the outcome. That's why the Stoic is never bitter, because he expects nothing and appreciates everything. Each sunrise is a gift. Each farewell is a reminder. Each loss is a return to simplicity. I once met an old man who had lost everything: his business, his home, his reputation. Yet when he spoke, he radiated peace. I asked him how he managed it. He smiled and said, "I learned to keep my hands open." That line stayed with me, because that's the essence of Stoic detachment. You can only receive when your hands are not clenched, and you can only move forward when they're not dragging what was meant to stay behind. So the next time something or someone slips away from you, don't see it as punishment, see it as purification. Life removes what you cling to so it can return you to what is real, your own inner strength. Seneca wrote, "Nothing belongs to us except time. Everything else is just on loan." And once you understand that, gratitude replaces greed, peace replaces panic. You begin to live with a heart that welcomes and releases without fear. Detachment doesn't numb you, it refines you. It's how you learn to stay kind in an unkind world. It's how you remain generous when others take without giving back. Because your peace no longer depends on fairness, it depends on discipline. You stop asking, "Why did this happen to me?" and start saying, "This too belongs to life." That shift changes everything. You stop resisting and start rising. In the end, detachment is not an escape, it's mastery. The mastery of self that allows you to engage with life without being consumed by it. You don't stop caring, you stop craving. You don't stop feeling, you stop fearing. And when you reach that point, nothing can shake you. You've already won the only battle that ever mattered, the battle against your own need to control the uncontrollable. So release your grip. Let go of what no longer serves your growth. And remember, what's meant for you cannot be lost, and what's lost was never truly yours. Because in the calmness of detachment, you'll find something rarer than power, peace. And from that peace, we rise into a deeper truth, that control was never about ruling others, but about returning home to yourself. Yet once you've found that home within, a quiet question begins to echo. What will you do with the strength you've built there? The stillness you've mastered inside isn't meant to remain hidden. It's meant to move outward, to shape how you walk into a room, how you speak, how you carry presence without saying a word. For true mastery doesn't end in the mind, it begins to ripple through the world. The Stoics understood this, that the man who commands himself eventually commands the space around him. When the mind becomes still, the world listens. When the soul is aligned, everything begins to align with it. This is where control ceases to be personal and becomes influence. There's a subtle shift that happens when you carry true composure. People start to mirror your steadiness. Their tone lowers, their chaos slows, their energy adjusts to yours. You've seen it before. One calm person walks into a heated room and somehow the argument softens. That's not coincidence, that's energetic authority. The Stoics called it the extension of logos, reason projecting itself through behavior. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "The soul becomes dyed with the color of its thoughts." Meaning, what you hold inside radiates outward, staining every interaction. If your mind is ordered, your presence becomes order itself. I remember a meeting where tension was thick enough to slice with a blade. Everyone defended their ideas like soldiers protecting kingdoms. I said nothing at first. I simply watched. I listened for patterns. Who sought attention, who sought truth, who feared being ignored. And when I finally spoke, I didn't raise my voice. I asked a single question that redirected the whole conversation. Are we here to win or to understand? Silence. The fight deflated. The atmosphere cleared. It wasn't persuasion, it was alignment. I wasn't trying to control anyone, I was controlling the frame, the tone, the tempo. That's what the Stoic does. He shapes outcomes by mastering rhythm, not reaction. Seneca once said, "The greatest empire is to be emperor of oneself, but an emperor is not meant to rule in isolation. His composure becomes the law of the land. His steadiness becomes the compass others follow." The same principle applies to every leader, every parent, every friend. When you maintain calm amidst confusion, people naturally orient around you. They sense security, even if they can't explain it. This is influence without effort. The kind born from discipline, not dominance. But there's a danger hidden here. Influence, if left unchecked, can turn into subtle pride. You start believing you're the one holding everything together. That's when detachment becomes essential again. You must remember that your calm doesn't control others, it only reveals them. Some will find peace in your presence, others will find discomfort because your silence exposes their noise. The Stoic's task is not to convert or correct, but to remain centered regardless of who follows. Think of it this way: a lighthouse doesn't chase ships. It stands where it is, steady against waves and wind. Some sailors will steer toward its light, others will ignore it and crash. Either way, the lighthouse remains. That's the kind of influence worth cultivating: quiet, consistent, unmoved by recognition. It shines not to be admired, but because it must. Its purpose is its peace. There's another kind of power that grows when you stop forcing outcomes. It's the power of gravity. The Stoic doesn't demand attention, he draws it. He doesn't beg for respect, he commands it by how he lives. In a world addicted to noise, the one who speaks less but acts precisely becomes magnetic. People start to ask for your opinion, not because you're loud, but because you're measured. They trust your words because they've seen your silence. They sense that you are not speaking to impress, you're speaking to clarify. Epictetus warned his students not to parade their wisdom. Don't explain your philosophy, embody it. This is one of the deepest forms of persuasion. You don't tell people what discipline is. You show them through the stillness of your demeanor. You don't preach virtue. You radiate it by remaining kind when provoked, humble when praised, patient when tested. People are not inspired by speeches, they're moved by consistency. The Stoic doesn't seek followers, but his example creates them. There's a story about a philosopher named Cleanthes, a student of Zeno. His peers mocked him for being quiet during debates, calling him slow-witted. One day, when asked why he rarely spoke, Cleanthes replied, "Because I prefer to drink from the spring than stir the mud." That answer silenced the room. His wisdom wasn't in his words, but in his refusal to waste them. True influence is not loud, it's precise. And it often appears understated until its impact becomes undeniable. The art of influence also requires emotional intelligence, not the kind found in modern self-help books, but the Stoic kind rooted in empathy and detachment. You must see through people without condemning them. You must understand their motives without absorbing their emotions. When you can perceive without prejudice, you can guide without control. The Stoic leader doesn't push others, he redirects them, like a river guiding stones downstream. His strength lies in subtlety. Marcus once reflected, "The best way to avenge yourself is to not become like your enemy." He was reminding himself not to let the world turn him into its mirror. You lead best when you refuse to imitate the chaos around you. That's why composure is more than self-defense. It's leadership in disguise. It's showing the world another way to exist. Your restraint becomes their realization. Your order becomes their reflection. The more disciplined your inner world becomes, the less you need to control anything externally. Because people sense integrity. They feel when words align with presence. That's the paradox of Stoic influence. You gain control not by seeking it, but by deserving it. Authority earned through silence lasts longer than authority demanded through noise. And the man who leads through calm will always outlast the man who leads through fear. I once heard someone say, "Power is not how many obey you, but how few you must command." That line carries Stoic truth. When your presence is strong enough, words become optional. You create harmony not by enforcing it, but by embodying it. You no longer push, you pull. You no longer chase, you attract. Because influence that requires control is fragile. But influence born from character, that endures. So, if you wish to shape the world around you, start by becoming a quiet force within it. Let your steadiness speak. Let your discipline do the convincing. Don't waste time proving your authority. Refine your nature until it can't be ignored. People will feel it in your posture, your tone, your patience. The Stoic doesn't need permission to lead. His calmness is already the signal others unconsciously follow. In the end, this is how control expands, from the inner citadel to the outer world, from silence to influence, from discipline to direction. The Stoic's presence doesn't shout, it resonates. And once you learn to turn composure into command, the next challenge appears. Not how to lead others, but how to lead time itself. Because the one who controls his rhythm controls his destiny. From here, imagine a man walking through the noise of the marketplace, merchants shouting, coins clattering, voices overlapping. Everyone moves in chaos, chasing attention, trying to be first, louder, seen. Yet one man walks slowly, calm as if time bends around him. He's not rushing, not reacting. He owns the rhythm others have lost. That is the secret most never realize. Control is not about strength, it's about tempo. The one who controls the pace controls the outcome. Marcus Aurelius once wrote, "If you are in pain because of any external thing, it is not this thing that disturbs you, but your judgment about it." He was reminding himself that chaos exists only for those who move with it. A Stoic moves differently. He doesn't fight time, he directs it. He doesn't rush decisions, he slows them until clarity appears. The world moves fast, but wisdom moves slow. That is why the disciplined man always seems to arrive before others. Not because he runs faster, but because he walks with purpose, while everyone else sprints toward confusion. There's a story of a Roman senator named Cato. In meetings, others would interrupt, argue, shout. Cato would stay silent. He waited until every voice exhausted itself. Then he would stand, adjust his cloak, and speak one sentence that ended the debate. People feared that silence because they knew it carried precision. That's what control of tempo looks like. You decide when something begins and when it ends. Most people lose influence not because they lack skill, but because they react too quickly. They hand control to the first emotion that touches them. The Stoic does the opposite. He stretches moments, widens the space between impulse and action. That space is power. Epictetus said, "No man is free who is not master of himself." To be master of yourself is to master time, not the hours on a clock, but the rhythm of your response. You learn to pause when others panic, to breathe when others break. You become the calm eye in every storm, and from that center, you decide the next move. I once watched a seasoned negotiator handle an impatient rival. The other man banged the table, demanded answers, raised his voice. But the negotiator leaned back, poured himself water, and drank slowly. No words, no rush. The silence stretched, uncomfortable and commanding. The aggressor began to stumble over his own points. By the time the negotiator finally spoke, the tone had shifted completely. That's the art of tempo. He didn't win by talking, he won by timing. The Stoics saw life not as a race, but as a sequence of measured steps. Seneca wrote, "To be everywhere is to be nowhere. The man who rushes through moments never lives them, he only collects them. But the one who moves deliberately, who observes before acting, who chooses precision over speed, that man lives fully and leaves no wasted motion behind. His restraint becomes efficiency. His patience becomes command." There's another layer to this law of tempo, knowing when to accelerate. The Stoic doesn't confuse patience with stagnation. When the moment calls, he moves decisively, because composure without action is only stillness, not mastery. The key is rhythm, when to hold, when to strike. Like a skilled swordsman, the Stoic doesn't swing wildly. He waits until the opponent's guard drops, then ends the fight with a single move. Every delay has purpose. Every movement is measured. But mastering tempo isn't only about strategy. It's also about peace. When you stop rushing, you begin to see. When you slow down, you start to hear what life has been whispering all along. The Stoic mind works like still water. It reflects truth clearly because it isn't disturbed. While others drown in haste, you walk with serenity. That serenity gives you insight, and insight always precedes victory. Marcus reminded himself daily, the obstacle is the way. He understood that resistance is not a barrier, but a signal, a call to slow down, to move with awareness, to realign with nature's timing. Every frustration you face is an invitation to practice patience. Every delay, a test of composure. The one who rushes misses the lesson. The one who waits gathers it. I remember standing once in traffic, late, frustrated, angry at the clock. But then a thought struck me. All my anger changed nothing. The cars would not move faster because of my impatience, so I let the frustration go. The noise remained the same, but my perception changed. I realized the Stoics were right. Time is never the enemy. Only your resistance to it is. When you move with time instead of against it, even delay becomes peace. Tempo is not just about movement, it's about awareness. You begin to notice the small windows of opportunity that others overlook because they're too hurried to see. You learn to sense when a conversation needs silence, when a decision needs delay, when a moment demands courage. That awareness turns life into something more than survival. It becomes mastery in motion. To control tempo is to hold the invisible thread that connects all things. You begin to understand that power does not come from rushing toward results, but from shaping the rhythm of your approach. The Stoic lives by a quiet code: move slow enough to stay grounded, but quick enough to stay alive. It's the balance between contemplation and courage, between the mind and the moment. Seneca said, "The greatest remedy for anger is delay. But this delay is not passive, it's intentional. It's the pause before impact, the breath before decision, the heartbeat before clarity." When you can pause inside chaos, you no longer react to life, you conduct it. The impatient dance to the tune of emotion. The Stoic writes his own music. Look at nature. The sun does not rush to rise, yet it never fails to bring light. The river does not force its flow, yet it carves mountains over time. Power lies in pacing. Everything strong in nature moves with rhythm, not haste. The Stoic lives the same way. He acts in tune with reason, aligned with nature's quiet precision. His life is proof that greatness does not explode, it unfolds. So when the world demands urgency, slow your breath. When people provoke, pause. When opportunity appears, act. Don't let the noise dictate your rhythm, set it. Because the one who owns the tempo owns the room, the conversation, the outcome. He's never too soon, never too late, always right on time. And as you begin to master this rhythm of action and restraint, another realization starts to take shape. Timing is nothing without awareness. The next step is learning to mirror the world around you, to adapt to its energy without losing your center, to bend without breaking, because the power that flows through timing must now evolve into the art of reflection. At this stage, picture a lake under the morning light, perfectly still, yet everything around it moves. Birds cross the sky, trees sway, clouds shift. The water reflects it all without becoming any of it. That is how a Stoic learns to live among people, to mirror without absorbing, to see clearly without taking on the turbulence of others. The goal is not to isolate yourself from emotion, but to let emotion pass through you without distorting your clarity. You reflect, but you remain untouched. Seneca once wrote, "Associate with those who will make a better man of you. Welcome those whom you yourself can improve." He wasn't simply talking about choosing friends, he was describing the balance between empathy and boundaries. When you learn to mirror without absorbing, you no longer drown in other people's storms. You listen deeply, but you don't lose yourself in their waves. You give compassion, but not control. That's the fine edge of Stoic strength. Caring without clinging, understanding without surrendering. The world will always try to pull you into its rhythm. Anger demands your anger in return. Gossip asks for your participation. Fear spreads by imitation. But when you stay centered, you break the cycle. You become the calm mirror that shows others their own reflection. And sometimes that's the greatest service you can offer, to let someone see through your steadiness how lost in emotion they've become. Marcus Aurelius reminded himself daily, when someone wrongs you, remember they act out of ignorance of what is good or evil. That understanding turns judgment into compassion. You stop hating people for being human. You start guiding them with your example instead of your reaction. I once met a man who was always surrounded by conflict. People yelled at him, provoked him, tried to pull him into arguments, yet he never raised his voice. He'd simply listen, nod once and say, "I see." At first I thought it was detachment, but over time I realized it was mastery. He wasn't ignoring people, he was absorbing their energy without letting it take root. He mirrored their pain back to them without amplifying it. In his presence, people either calmed down or walked away, not because he forced them to, but because their noise couldn't survive his quiet. That's the power of reflection, to influence without resistance. When you learn this art, you become like the mountain stream, always moving, yet never stained by what passes through it. The Stoics called this apatheia, not indifference, but freedom from disturbance. You don't reject emotion, you govern it. You don't reject people, you choose your engagement. To mirror without absorbing is to participate in life fully without letting it own you. It's the discipline of remaining clear while others blur. Marcus once wrote in his journal, "Adapt yourself to the things among which your lot has been cast, and love sincerely the fellow creatures with whom destiny has ordained that you shall live." Adaptation, not withdrawal. That's the key. Life is not meant to be endured from a distance. You must step into it, feel it, respond to it. But you must also remember that every interaction is temporary, every emotion transient. The wise man moves with empathy, but not attachment. His strength lies in knowing where he ends and where the world begins. Think of the last time someone's mood infected yours. A careless remark, a burst of negativity, a subtle insult, and suddenly your peace vanished. That's what happens when reflection becomes absorption. You stop being the mirror and start being the noise. The Stoic sees these moments as training grounds. Every encounter with another person is a test of your clarity. Can you remain composed when insulted? Can you stay kind when ignored? Can you listen without taking their chaos home with you? Each success strengthens the inner citadel. Each failure reveals a crack you can repair. Epictetus compared the disciplined mind to a fortress. He said, "No man can take from you what you do not give." Most people give away their peace freely, through reaction, through offense, through over-involvement. But when you stop handing it out, no one can disturb it. You begin to see every conversation as an exchange of energy. You can choose to receive it, reflect it, or let it pass. The mirror does not cling to the image it reflects. It simply shows it and remains pure. That's how the Stoic moves through the world, present, responsive, but never ruled by it. There's a practical beauty in this philosophy. You start noticing that people project themselves onto you constantly. The insecure will test you to prove their worth. The angry will seek conflict to validate their pain. The jealous will provoke to measure your reaction. But when you no longer absorb those projections, their power dissolves. You turn confrontation into understanding, judgment into neutrality. It's not because you're superior, it's because you've learned that every reaction costs energy, and energy is sacred. I remember once being accused of something I didn't do. My instinct was to defend, to prove, to argue, but I paused. I remembered Seneca's wisdom. The greatest remedy for anger is delay. I gave it time. I said nothing. Days later, the truth revealed itself without my intervention. In that silence, I learned that reflection is not weakness, it's strategy. You let the noise expose itself. You stay clean by not entering the mud. The Stoic wins not by confrontation, but by conservation of energy, of dignity, of peace. The man who mirrors without absorbing is also the one who learns fastest. Because he observes everything. He watches patterns without taking sides. He studies emotion without being ruled by it. Over time, this creates something rare, empathy without exhaustion. You can feel deeply without losing balance. You can care without being consumed. That's the Stoic way, not detachment from life, but clarity within it. Seneca said, "A great mind becomes both kinder and stronger as it understands." That's the paradox of reflection. The clearer your mind, the softer your heart. The more you understand others, the less you need to judge them. You stop fighting people for who they are and start seeing who they could become. And sometimes your calmness alone becomes their first glimpse of peace. So, mirror life, but don't absorb it. Reflect people, but remain yourself. Be water, adaptable yet unchanged, responsive yet unbroken. Let their words ripple across your surface, but never reach your depth. Because the one who can stay clear in a world full of distortion doesn't just survive, he leads. And once you've mastered this art of reflection, of empathy with boundaries, of connection without loss, the next test emerges naturally. It is not about what you give, but what you take away. The time has come to learn the strength of absence, the quiet expansion that happens when you withdraw not to hide, but to grow. Now imagine this, a quiet room, sunlight crawling across the floor, and you sitting still, surrounded by everything you've built, yet sensing that something invisible is shifting. It's not loss, it's evolution. There comes a moment in every life when silence is no longer just a state. It's a signal. It whispers that it's time to step away, not to vanish, but to return to your center. This is the power of strategic withdrawal, the Stoic art of stepping back, not as defeat, but as design. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "Withdraw into yourself." The rational principle is not diminished by calm. He wasn't advocating isolation from the world. He was describing the discipline of retreat, the ability to pause your participation long enough to restore your power. In the modern world, withdrawal is misunderstood. People think stepping back means surrendering your influence. The Stoic sees it differently. Stepping back is how you gather it again. You don't lose control by leaving the room, you lose it by never learning when to leave. The strongest men and women I've met all share one thing: they know when to disappear. They understand the cycle of power. Influence expands through presence, but renews itself through absence. The mind, like the sea, must ebb to return stronger. The Stoic withdraws not from exhaustion, but from strategy. He knows that noise is not strength, clarity is. I once met a leader who practiced this with perfect grace. During tense negotiations, when the room grew hot with pride and emotion, he'd suddenly go quiet. He'd look around, smile faintly and say, "Let's pause here." He'd walk out, take a slow breath, and let the silence do the rest. When he returned, the entire energy had shifted. People spoke softer. The arguments lost sharpness. His withdrawal didn't weaken his authority, it deepened it. He showed that the one who leaves at will is never trapped. Seneca once said, "The mind must be given relaxation. It will rise improved and sharper after a good rest." Withdrawal isn't laziness, it's refinement. It's stepping back to sharpen your sword instead of swinging it blindly. It's knowing that presence is most powerful when it's earned through distance. Those who stay visible too long lose weight. Those who vanish with purpose become myth. Even the sun disappears each night, not in weakness, but to return with strength no shadow can challenge. We live in a culture that worships constant movement, always speaking, posting, producing, performing. But the Stoic rejects that illusion. He knows that uninterrupted visibility drains essence. Sometimes to regain power, you must step into silence so the world can remember your absence. Absence commands attention because it reminds others that your presence is a choice, not a dependence. The one who can walk away owns the table. The one who must stay loses it. There's a story told of Musonius Rufus, the teacher of Epictetus. When Roman authorities tried to humiliate him by exiling him from the capital, he didn't resist. He simply said, "You can banish me from Rome, but not from reason." And in exile he continued to teach. His absence from the city made his presence immortal. They removed his body, but they couldn't remove his voice. That's the paradox of withdrawal. When done with purpose, it amplifies what remains. The Stoic doesn't run from the world, he rotates between engagement and retreat. He knows that wisdom grows in solitude, then proves itself in interaction. Too much solitude becomes arrogance, too much engagement becomes noise. The art lies in rhythm, knowing when to appear and when to let silence speak for you. Marcus practiced this daily in his meditations, writing to himself as both emperor and student, ruler and philosopher. He understood that to lead outwardly, he had to withdraw inwardly. I once stood by the ocean at dawn. The waves retreated, leaving the sand bare and quiet. For a moment, it seemed like the sea had gone still, but in truth, it was only gathering force to return. That's how the Stoic treats withdrawal, a gathering, not a loss. You step back from people, from conflict, from chaos, not to escape, but to rebuild your strength unseen. The world may mistake it for weakness. Let them. Their noise reveals their dependency, your silence reveals your mastery. Seneca also warned, "He who is everywhere is nowhere. The man who never steps away loses depth." Every mind, like every muscle, needs contraction and release. Your withdrawal is not absence from life, it's alignment with nature's rhythm. Everything that endures, the moon, the tides, the seasons, moves in cycles. So should you. Constant presence dulls impact. Strategic distance restores it. And it's not just about distance from others. It's also withdrawal from the unnecessary within yourself. Step back from the need to explain, from the urge to prove, from the noise of thoughts that don't serve your peace. You don't need to win every argument. You don't need to clarify every rumor. The Stoic doesn't chase understanding, he becomes it. By stepping back from vanity and validation, he sees the landscape of life with unclouded eyes. There was a philosopher who said, "When I withdraw, I see more." His students asked how. He replied, "Because when you step away from the crowd, the dust settles." The mind works the same way. When you stop reacting, clarity arrives on its own. The world keeps shouting, but you start hearing only what matters. That is how withdrawal becomes wisdom. Silence filtering truth from noise. And here lies the quiet power of absence. It teaches the world to value your presence. When you stop appearing everywhere, people start to listen when you speak. When you stop saying yes to everything, your yes becomes meaningful again. Your withdrawal makes your energy sacred. You become less accessible, but infinitely more respected. This is why the Stoics were both loved and feared, not because they sought power, but because they could live without it. So when you feel the urge to prove, pause. When you feel drained by noise, disappear for a while. When you feel unseen, remember, absence itself is a kind of visibility. You don't have to fight for space. You create it by stepping back. And when you return quietly, carrying something the world has forgotten: focus, calm, depth. The one who can withdraw and return at will is free. He is not driven by applause or loneliness, not addicted to the crowd or fearful of silence. He moves like the tide, retreating and advancing in perfect rhythm with reason. And once you've mastered the strength of withdrawal, the power of creating space without losing ground, you begin to see the final lesson forming on the horizon, that even your enemies, your rivals, and those who oppose you are part of your evolution. Because what resists you refines you. The next step is learning how to turn adversity into an ally and opposition into your greatest teacher. At this stage, imagine a blacksmith at his forge. Sparks fly. The metal glows red, bending, screaming under the hammer. Every strike looks violent, yet every strike refines. The metal is not being punished, it's being perfected. That is what resistance does to the Stoic. It shapes him. He doesn't curse the fire, he thanks it. Because without the fire, there would be no form. Without adversity, no strength. This is where understanding begins. that your enemies, your setbacks, your critics are not obstacles in your path. They are the path. Marcus Aurelius said, "What stands in the way becomes the way." It's not just a poetic idea, it's a strategy. Every opposition you face contains a lesson about yourself. How easily you're provoked, how attached you are to outcome, how dependent you are on validation. Your enemies are mirrors. They show you the parts of yourself you've refused to see. The Stoic doesn't wish for an easy life because he knows comfort breeds confusion. He welcomes resistance, not with arrogance, but with readiness. He meets hostility with curiosity. He studies every wound until it becomes wisdom. I remember once facing a rival who seemed determined to ruin my reputation. His words were sharp, his motives unclear, his persistence endless. At first I wanted to fight back, to prove, to correct. But one day I asked myself, what if he's my teacher in disguise? That question changed everything. I started to watch him, not with anger, but with analysis. His tactics taught me where I was still reactive. His malice revealed where I was still insecure. And the more I observed, the more his attacks lost power. He was fighting the version of me that no longer existed. That's when I understood. The one who uses resistance for reflection always wins twice, first in composure, then in evolution. Seneca wrote, "Difficulties strengthen the mind, as labor does the body." The Stoics didn't just endure hardship, they engineered growth through it. Adversity is nature's classroom, and enemies are the uninvited instructors who force you to remember what you already know. You don't conquer them by shouting louder, you conquer them by becoming calmer. Every insult becomes an exercise in patience, every betrayal a lesson in boundaries, every failure a course in resilience. The universe teaches through repetition until you learn to listen. But here's the paradox. When you begin to transform through hardship, those who once opposed you start to disappear. Not because they've changed, but because you have. You stop reacting to their provocations. You stop needing their approval. And when there's nothing left for them to feed on, they starve. The Stoic wins not by defeating his enemies, but by transcending the game. The moment you outgrow the conflict, it ends. Marcus wrote, "The best revenge is to be unlike your enemy. Nothing crushes hostility more completely than your peace." The Stoic doesn't take offense. He takes notes. When people betray you, it's not a curse, it's a revelation. You now know who cannot walk with you into the next season of your life. When people lie about you, you learn the value of truth by contrast. When they underestimate you, they give you the gift of invisibility, the freedom to rise quietly. Even pain itself, once examined, becomes the forge of greatness. You cannot become unshakable without first being shaken. There's an old Roman story about a general who lost every battle in his early career. Humiliated, stripped of command, he wandered into exile. But instead of collapsing, he began studying every defeat, the terrain, the timing, the psychology of war. Years later, he returned to the battlefield and won a string of victories that made his name immortal. His enemies had trained him more effectively than any ally ever could. That's the hidden law of life. Every opposition carries the seed of mastery if you choose to study it instead of resenting it. Epictetus, who was born a slave, taught his students that the one thing no master could take was how he interpreted the world. His owner could beat his body, but not his mind. That understanding became the foundation of Stoicism's greatest freedom, the power to turn suffering into strength. He said, "It's not things that upset us, but our opinions about things," meaning no insult hurts until you decide it does. No failure defines you until you repeat it in your mind. No enemy destroys you unless you let him live rent-free in your thoughts. Every Stoic learns to practice a kind of emotional alchemy, turning what was meant to break you into what builds you. When people challenge your worth, you use their doubt as discipline. When the world closes doors, you use confinement as contemplation. Resistance becomes raw material. The more you're opposed, the more precise you become. The harder the hammer strikes, the sharper the edge grows. The danger lies not in facing enemies, but in becoming them. Hatred is a contagion. Respond to it long enough, and it infects your spirit. The Stoic refuses to let that happen. He sees opposition as neutral, neither blessing nor curse, but opportunity. Every encounter tests your philosophy. Can you remain just when wronged? Can you stay patient when provoked? Can you keep dignity when disrespected? Each yes refines you. Each failure humbles you. Together, they carve a character that no external force can corrupt. Marcus reminded himself constantly, you have power over your mind, not outside events. The mind that knows this becomes indestructible, because enemies can't wound what doesn't seek approval. They can't defeat what doesn't depend on winning. They can't threaten what's already surrendered to reason. When you live by principle, you no longer need protection. Your integrity becomes your armor. I once met a craftsman who carved sculptures from marble. I asked him how he decided what to create from a single block. He smiled and said, "I don't create, I uncover." That's what adversity does. It chips away at everything false in you until only truth remains. Your struggles are not shaping you into something new. They're revealing what was always within you, the unbreakable self, the Stoic self. So the next time life presses against you, don't ask, "Why is this happening to me?" Ask, "What is this trying to reveal in me?" Because every hardship holds a message. Every rival, a mirror. Every loss, a refinement. The fire that burns others can become your light if you stay calm long enough to see its pattern. The Stoic's path isn't about avoiding pain, but about learning to use it. You walk through fire and come out forged, not charred. You turn obstacles into momentum, anger into insight, rejection into freedom. And when you live this way, even your enemies become part of your evolution. They don't know it, but they're building you. So thank them silently, forgive them privately, outgrow them completely, because the moment you stop fighting them, they stop existing as enemies. They become your teachers. And that is the final transformation, when opposition no longer threatens your peace, but polishes it. And as you reach this point of stillness through fire, one truth becomes clear: control was never about the world bending to your will, but about your will bending to wisdom. The next evolution is not in conquest, but in integration, when mastery over life turns into harmony with it. Then something begins to shift. The struggle no longer feels like struggle. The lessons no longer feel like defense. What once felt like survival now feels like design. You begin to see that every challenge, every silence, every trial was never meant to break you. It was preparing you, carving space within for something greater to emerge. Because mastery is not the end of the path, it's the beginning of creation. Once you've learned to command yourself, the question changes. It's no longer how do I endure the world, but what will I build within it? And that is where transformation truly begins, when control becomes creation. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "The happiness of your life depends upon the quality of your thoughts." He wasn't speaking of empty optimism, but of architecture. The mind, when governed by discipline, becomes the blueprint of reality. Every word you speak, Every choice you make, every response you give, builds the structure you live in tomorrow. Once you master yourself, life no longer happens to you. It unfolds through you. The Stoic becomes the craftsman of existence, not its victim. Think about it. Most people drift through their days reacting to the next event, the next message, the next inconvenience. They're like leaves caught in the wind, always moving but never deciding. The Stoic walks differently. He moves through the same chaos, but builds order with every step. His calm becomes his compass. His focus becomes his foundation. The world still tests him, but he no longer sees those tests as punishment. He sees them as material, clay to be molded by intention. I once knew an artist who painted only in the early hours before dawn. He said the world's silence was his truest collaborator. In those hours, he told me, I don't fight my mind, I build with it. That is the Stoic secret, creation through stillness. When you stop wasting energy on what you can't control, you suddenly have energy for everything you can. When anger no longer consumes you, clarity returns, and with clarity comes power. The quiet kind that doesn't need to shout because it moves through purpose, not noise. Seneca said, "Life is long if you know how to use it." The Stoic uses it by creating, not consuming. Every moment becomes a canvas. Every obstacle becomes a design challenge. When you face hardship, ask yourself, what can I build from this? A lesson, a virtue, a stronger version of self. That mindset transforms pain into possibility. The same fire that burns the careless becomes light in the hands of the wise. Creation, in the Stoic sense, isn't limited to art or achievement. It's the practice of shaping your inner landscape so that external chaos loses its grip. It's building routines that honor discipline, thoughts that protect peace, words that carry precision. The Stoic crafts his life as a sculptor shapes marble, slowly, deliberately, removing what is unnecessary until only the essential remains. The work never ends because the material is infinite. Every day he meets a new version of himself waiting to be carved. Marcus wrote often of aligning the soul with nature. He believed that when you act in harmony with reason, your life becomes part of a larger design. You stop trying to force outcomes. You start working with the current, not against it. The builder who fights the grain of wood ruins the masterpiece. The one who follows it creates beauty. In the same way, the Stoic learns to move with the rhythm of life, turning resistance into direction, friction into focus. There's a story about a Roman architect who built a bridge so strong that when the emperor asked him why he used such thick stones, he said, "Because I built it to outlast storms, not applause." That's how the Stoic lives. Every decision, every discipline, every silence is placed with intention, not for recognition, but for endurance. His life may look simple on the surface, but beneath it runs the geometry of reason, symmetry of purpose, and the quiet elegance of restraint. I once stood on a hill at sunset and watched the city below come alive with light. Every window flickered like a heartbeat. It struck me that behind every light was a person shaping their own small world, some with chaos, some with clarity. And I thought of the Stoics, how they taught that the world is not what it gives us, but what we give back through how we see it. Your perception builds your reality. If your mind is disorderly, your world follows suit. But if your mind is ordered, even the darkest places begin to hold light. To create your life consciously, you must first understand the power of choice. Epictetus said, "No great thing is created suddenly. Creation is the result of small, deliberate acts done with consistency. You build patience by waiting, wisdom by observing, strength by enduring. Nothing arrives fully formed." Even mountains are sculpted grain by wind and time. The Stoic accepts this pace. He doesn't rush transformation. He practices it daily, trusting that small precision over time creates timeless strength. But creation is not just about adding, it's about subtraction. The Stoic learns to remove what no longer belongs: opinions that cloud the mind, habits that weaken the body, attachments that trap the soul. Life becomes lighter as the unnecessary falls away. What remains is clarity, the kind that doesn't depend on circumstances because it's built from within. When you live this way, you stop chasing control and start expressing it. You stop searching for purpose and start embodying it. The greatest creators in history all understood this law. They didn't wait for perfect conditions. They built in imperfection. They used limitation as structure. The Stoic does the same. When fate closes one door, he builds another. When life withholds, he creates. When others despair, he designs. He understands that to exist is to craft meaning out of motion. That's why Marcus could rule an empire and still find peace in solitude. His empire began in the mind, not on the throne. The Stoic life is a masterpiece in progress. It's not painted in bright colors, but in depth. It's not loud, but lasting. And every moment of calm, every act of discipline, every silence in the face of noise adds another brushstroke. You're building not a castle of control, but a cathedral of clarity, something vast, grounded, and alive. So look around your life and ask yourself, what am I building through my thoughts, my reactions, my presence? Is my day shaped by intention or by impulse? Because everything you do is architecture, every emotion, a brick, every decision, a line of design. The Stoic doesn't wait for peace, he constructs it. And once you learn to build your inner world with such precision, a new truth begins to unfold. What you create in silence eventually transforms what surrounds you. The next step is to understand how this quiet mastery radiates outward, how the order within becomes harmony without. Now imagine walking through the same streets you've always known, yet everything feels lighter. The noise of the world no longer disturbs you. You still see conflict, pride, ambition, greed, but instead of feeling trapped by them, you move through them with ease. That is what happens when power evolves into something greater than control, when control becomes harmony. You no longer fight the flow of life. You move with it. You no longer resist what comes or mourn what leaves. You walk aligned with the rhythm of nature itself. Marcus Aurelius once wrote, "Adapt yourself to the things among which your lot has been cast, and love sincerely the fellow creatures with whom destiny has ordained that you shall live." To live in harmony with life is not to surrender to fate blindly, but to understand that every event, pleasant or painful, belongs exactly where it occurs. The Stoic does not curse storms. He studies their pattern. He does not beg for peace. He builds it through acceptance. When the mind stops fighting reality, reality becomes a teacher instead of an enemy. There's a story of an old philosopher who used to sit by a river every morning. When a student asked why he came there daily, he smiled and said, "Because the river never argues with what it carries." That is harmony, to let life flow through you without resistance, without clinging. Some days it brings calm waters, others debris and storm. Yet the river remains the river. You too can remain yourself in all seasons. When fortune rises, stay humble. When loss arrives, stay steady. When others rage, stay kind. The current of life cannot drown you when you learn to move with it. Seneca said, "No man is crushed by misfortune unless he has first been deceived by prosperity." Harmony protects you from both. the illusion of permanence and the fear of change. You begin to see that life is not a battle to win, but a rhythm to join. The Stoic aligns his will with nature's order, understanding that nothing truly belongs to him, not possessions, not status, not even time. Everything is borrowed, and to live well is to return it gracefully. Once you grasp this, peace becomes your natural state. You stop forcing outcomes and start flowing through them. You start making decisions not from fear or pride, but from clarity. You begin to act with patience, even when urgency surrounds you. This is not passivity, it's precision. Harmony sharpens action because it removes noise. You no longer chase what's already yours, nor cling to what's already gone. You trust the rhythm, and the rhythm carries you further than force ever could. I remember once standing in the middle of a city at rush hour. Cars honking, people shouting, everyone moving as if running from silence itself. Yet among that chaos, I saw a street musician playing calmly in the corner, not rushing, not competing with the noise, just playing. His melody didn't fight the traffic, it floated through it. For a moment, everything around him seemed to slow, even the impatient stopped to listen. That's harmony. To exist in chaos and yet become the calm within it. Marcus reminded himself daily that all things are part of one great living organism, that what harms one part harms the whole. He saw life as a web of reason and interconnection. To live in harmony is to move with awareness that your actions echo beyond yourself. The Stoic understands this: to hurt another is to harm your own peace. To cheat is to diminish your integrity. To lie is to fracture your own reflection. So he practices justice not because it's convenient, but because it keeps the soul aligned with truth. Harmony begins with thought, but extends into behavior. It's how you treat others, how you hold yourself, how you respond when tested. A Stoic doesn't only seek tranquility and solitude, he brings it into conversation, into work, into conflict. His calm becomes contagious. His patience turns confrontation into reflection. His silence disarms those who expect resistance. This is the quiet influence of a mind in order. It organizes everything around it. There's a story about Cleanthes, a student of Zeno, who was mocked for being slow and quiet during debates. His peers saw his stillness as weakness. One day, when a particularly arrogant student challenged him, Cleanthes replied softly, "Even the sun waits for the horizon before it rises." The crowd laughed, until they realized the wisdom in his calm. Harmony gives you timing. It gives you grace. You don't need to rush to prove truth. Truth proves itself through endurance. When you live this way, disappointment loses its sting. You no longer demand that life be easy. You only ask that it be honest. You accept what comes as part of your training, what leaves as part of your cleansing. Every end makes space for renewal. Every challenge refines understanding. Every loss tests your faith in reason. You begin to see the hand of order in what once looked like chaos. That's the Stoic's highest vision, to look at the world, flawed and fragile, and still say it is enough. Seneca once wrote, "Order your soul, reduce your wants, live in tune with reason." These three commands form the foundation of harmony. To order the soul is to clear away clutter, the unnecessary ambitions, the imagined fears, the noise of comparison. To reduce your wants is to taste freedom, because desire chains you more than failure ever could. And to live in tune with reason is to act with understanding, not impulse. When these three unite, life becomes beautifully simple. I met a man once who had lost everything. his business, his wealth, his reputation. Yet he spoke with a peace that startled me. When I asked how he managed it, he said, "Because I realized I was never those things to begin with. They were just passing shapes in the water." That's the essence of harmony, to stop confusing what passes through your life with what defines it. You are not your roles, your possessions, or even your achievements. You are the consciousness observing them. When you live from that center, you can lose everything and still remain whole. Harmony doesn't mean perfection. It means alignment. It's not about escaping storms, but staying steady through them. The Stoic knows that life will never obey him, but it will always respond to his state of mind. When he's scattered, the world feels hostile. When he's centered, even hardship feels instructive. Peace is not found in the world changing. It's found in you changing the way you see the world. So live like the river. Flow when it's time to move. Rest when it's time to settle. Don't fight the banks that guide you, they shape your strength. Don't resent the stones that slow you, they make your song. And when life demands stillness, reflect clearly. When it calls for motion, move freely. That is harmony, to live in rhythm with what is, not what you wish it to be. And as harmony settles into your bones, a new kind of peace begins to grow, not the silence of withdrawal, but the radiance of understanding. The next awakening comes when you realize that this peace cannot be taken from you, because it no longer depends on anything outside you. At this stage, picture a candle burning in a dark room. The flame doesn't rage or shout, it stands still, and by its very stillness, it gives light. That's what peace becomes when it matures, not silence born from withdrawal, but radiance born from understanding. It's the kind of calm that cannot be stolen because it no longer depends on the world. You've moved beyond needing the noise to quiet down before you can rest. You've learned to carry stillness within you, like a secret fire that doesn't flicker no matter how hard the wind blows. Marcus Aurelius once said, "Nowhere you can go is more peaceful, more free of interruptions than your own soul." The man who truly understands this stops chasing peace outside of himself. He realizes peace isn't found in new places or people, but in the way he perceives them. The Stoic doesn't wait for the world to calm down. He brings calm to the world. That's why, even in times of chaos, he can think clearly, act justly, and remain kind. His stillness isn't weakness, it's authority over himself. There's a story about a Roman centurion who, after years of war, retired to a small house near the sea. People came to visit him, expecting to find bitterness, but instead, they found serenity. When asked how he found peace after so much bloodshed, he replied, "I stopped fighting battles that didn't belong to me." That's the heart of Stoic peace, not the absence of conflict, but the wisdom to choose which battles are worth your soul. Most of what disturbs us are wars we never needed to fight, proving, defending, controlling. When you release them, life becomes lighter. Seneca wrote, "If you want to be at peace, do fewer things, but do them with purpose." The mind that tries to grasp everything ends up grasping nothing. But the one who simplifies, who focuses only on what truly matters, discovers abundance in clarity. The Stoic doesn't chase endless achievements, he chases alignment. He knows that every yes must be protected by 1,000 no's. His peace comes not from having more, but from needing less. I once met a man who owned almost nothing, no wealth, no recognition, no followers. Yet there was something magnetic about him. His voice was calm. His movements were deliberate. When he spoke, people listened, not because he demanded it, but because he didn't need it. His contentment was unshakable. He told me once, "The world cannot take what I no longer cling to." That's the essence of unshakable peace, to live so freely that nothing can be stolen from you because you've already given it away willingly in your mind. Epictetus said, "It is not what happens to you, but how you react to it that matters." At first, it sounds simple, but the depth of that truth changes everything. Because the more you live it, the more you realize that peace is a decision, not a condition. You can choose to stay composed when insulted. You can choose patience when delayed. You can choose compassion when wronged. Each choice is a brick in the fortress of peace you build inside yourself. No one can enter it unless you open the door. The Stoic doesn't isolate himself from the world. He walks among it, untouched, like a traveler crossing a storm with dry clothes, because he knows which path stays above water. That's why his calm isn't naive, it's earned. He's met chaos, and he's chosen clarity. He's seen cruelty, and he's chosen kindness. He's faced loss, and he's chosen gratitude. This is the kind of peace that doesn't disappear when tested, it deepens. There's a moment that comes to every seeker, the realization that nothing external can add to what's already whole. You stop chasing completion in people, success, or recognition. You understand that peace is not a prize to be won, but a presence to be remembered. You had it all along, beneath the noise, behind the ambition, under the armor you built to survive. The Stoics called it living according to nature, which means returning to what you already are, a rational, grounded, self-possessed being in harmony with reason. I remember standing once at the top of a mountain after a long climb. The air was thin, the view infinite. But the strangest thing was how quiet it was. The climb had been full of noise, heavy breathing, shifting stones, the wind's howl, but at the summit, only silence remained. That's what peace feels like after struggle. The noise doesn't vanish because the world changes. It vanishes because you've risen above it. Marcus Aurelius reminded himself daily, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." He was emperor of Rome, surrounded by politics, betrayal, war, yet he wrote of peace more than power. Because he understood what so many forget, external control is fragile, internal control is forever. The calm mind governs kingdoms more effectively than the restless one ever could. Seneca compared peace to the open sea after a storm. He said, "Just as the sea becomes smooth again when the winds cease, so does the mind when passions subside." But the Stoic learns something deeper, that even when the winds don't cease, he can remain still beneath them. His peace isn't conditional on calm weather, it's built on depth. The deeper the soul, the less the surface is disturbed. This unshakable peace doesn't mean indifference. It means intimacy with life itself. You begin to feel everything, but you're no longer ruled by anything. You can walk through sorrow without drowning, through joy without clinging. You become a vessel wide enough to hold both pain and beauty without breaking. That's why peace is the highest form of strength, because it allows you to love the world without being owned by it. When you reach this state, even death loses its power to frighten you. Marcus wrote, "It is not death that a man should fear, but he should fear never beginning to live." To the Stoic, peace with mortality is peace with life. You stop postponing happiness for future certainty. You live fully now because you understand that every moment you are calm, aware, and aligned is already eternity in miniature. So the next time you seek peace, stop looking outward. Stop waiting for perfect conditions, for validation, for closure. Instead, return to your inner citadel. The fortress has always been there, waiting for you to walk its halls again. You'll find no noise there, no demands, only a quiet, steady fire that has never gone out. And once you've discovered this unshakable peace, a final transformation begins to reveal itself, not through effort, but through simplicity. Because the ultimate mastery of life isn't expansion, but return, the journey back to the essence of what it means to be whole. Now imagine the journey reaching its quiet end. The noise has faded, the striving has ceased. You're no longer trying to build, to conquer, to prove. What remains is simplicity, a life stripped of excess, a soul clear of weight. This is where the circle closes, where mastery returns to innocence. After years of learning how to hold the world, you finally understand how to let it rest in your open palm. That is the final form of strength, to desire nothing and yet possess everything. Marcus Aurelius once wrote, "Very little is needed to make a happy life. It is all within yourself, in your way of thinking." The Stoics knew that simplicity was not poverty, but abundance, not in things, but in peace. The more you remove, the more you see. The quieter the mind becomes, the more it understands. And what it understands most is this: happiness was never hidden in distant achievements. It was always waiting beneath the noise, in the discipline of enough. I once met a farmer who owned almost nothing, yet lacked nothing. "I learned," he said, "how little a man needs to feel complete." That is Stoic wisdom in its purest form, contentment born from clarity. The Stoic doesn't reject luxury out of pride, he simply refuses to be owned by it. He knows that possession is only a burden when it begins to possess you. Seneca warned, "It is not the man who has too little, but the man who craves more, who is poor." He understood that craving is the enemy of peace. The world constantly whispers, "You need more," but every time you chase, you trade freedom for illusion. The Stoic chooses differently. He finds beauty in moderation, joy in presence, power in restraint. He doesn't count what he owns, he counts what he can live without. Imagine your life as a garden. For years you've planted, watered, built walls, chased growth. But the final wisdom is pruning, cutting back what no longer serves, clearing space for light to return. That's what simplicity feels like. It's not emptiness, it's clarity. It's knowing the difference between what sustains you and what distracts you. You realize that most of what you called important was only noise dressed as purpose. You stop collecting and you start cultivating. There's a story about a philosopher who was once offered a mansion by a wealthy admirer. He declined and said, "If I live there, I will have to think about it every day. I prefer to think about life instead." That answer contains the entire Stoic spirit, to live so lightly that no object, no praise, no fear can weigh you down. The Stoic's peace doesn't come from having less, it comes from needing less. Marcus often reminded himself that everything material fades, the silk, the marble, the applause. Alexander the Great and his mule driver both died and were absorbed into the same earth, he wrote. To the Stoic, equality is not a social idea, it's a natural truth. All things end, and once you accept that, every moment becomes infinitely valuable. Every breath becomes gratitude. You stop rushing toward tomorrow because you finally understand you already stand in eternity. I remember once watching an old craftsman at work, his hands scarred but steady. He was repairing a broken wooden bowl instead of discarding it. When I asked why, he said, "Because it still holds water." That simple phrase struck me deeply. The Stoic life is the same, not flawless, not new, but whole enough to serve its purpose. You stop chasing perfection and start honoring function. You realize that your life doesn't need to impress, it only needs to express. Simplicity doesn't mean stepping back from life, it means dancing with it lightly, without the chains of excess. You eat, but with awareness. You work, but without obsession. You love, but without possession. The Stoic enjoys deeply, not desperately. He's not numb to pleasure, he simply refuses to be enslaved by it. Seneca said, "He who is content with least is richest." True wealth is not the accumulation of comfort, but the absence of craving. At this stage, you begin to see that simplicity is not just a lifestyle, it's a philosophy of being. You realize that the fewer distractions you have, the more vividly you can see reality. The fewer words you need, the more power your voice carries. The fewer desires you chase, the freer your spirit becomes. The Stoic life moves like a quiet stream, steady, clear, unforced. Its beauty lies not in spectacle, but in continuity. Epictetus told his students, "If you wish to be rich, do not add to your money, but subtract from your desires." That's how the Stoic measures wealth, not in coins, but in contentment. Every time you stop comparing, you grow richer. Every time you choose gratitude over greed, you strengthen the foundation of your peace. The greatest luxury of all is a calm mind. I once sat with an old teacher who said something I never forgot. The man who can sit in an empty room and still feel complete has found freedom. At first, I thought he meant solitude. Later, I understood he meant sufficiency, to feel whole without addition. To rest in what is, without reaching for what isn't. That's not apathy, it's arrival. This is the quiet triumph of Stoic simplicity, to live in such harmony with the present that you stop bargaining with the future. You don't need the next victory, the next recognition, the next possession to justify your existence. You're already enough because you no longer measure yourself by anything external. You've returned to the essence of being awake, calm, unchained. Marcus said, "Look well into yourself. There is a source of strength which will always spring up if you will always look." The Stoic finds that source not in movement, but in stillness. He learns that simplicity is not the end of ambition, it is ambition purified. The desire to live rightly, clearly, fully. When you strip away everything false, what remains is everything true. So as the journey settles into quiet completion, remember this mastery was never about rising above others. It was about returning to yourself. Power was never about control. It was about freedom. And peace was never the absence of life. It was the full acceptance of it. In the end, the Stoic doesn't seek to escape the world. He becomes one with it, simple, steady, and strong. Like a mountain in the morning sun, still, silent, and alive with light. When you reach the end of this path, remember this truth. Control was never about bending others to your will, but about mastering the only kingdom that truly matters, your own mind. The power you seek isn't in dominance, but in direction, the quiet ability to choose calm when others lose theirs, to remain steady when the world shakes. Every time you pause instead of react, observe instead of judge, wait instead of rush, you rise above the noise. That is how a Stoic wins, not through conquest, but through clarity. If this message speaks to you, take a moment to reflect and subscribe, not for more noise, but for more silence that teaches. Comment below with 2 words that define your strength today. Let this space be your reminder that wisdom grows in stillness and that peace is not weakness, it is power refined. Keep walking this path with patience. The next step is waiting for you, where we go deeper into the art of influence and the quiet force that commands without control. Until then, stay grounded, stay clear, and remember, mastery is not a destination, it's a